Optimism. The hero of your dreams, your savior, the key to your success. Optimism is the belief that one should focus on the positive side of issues, always being hopeful for the future. How many times has someone told you, well, look on the bright side, after you confided in them about something that upset you? How many times have you felt disappointed in their response because you simply couldn't and wouldn't benefit from their advice? Frankly, bright sides do not always exist, and replying to someone's concerns with such responses makes it seem like you're belittling their struggle. Having an optimistic attitude doesn't solve your problems. It just allows you to ignore their existence. Pretending that the world can only have positive outcomes is simply naive and unrealistic. Sure, good things happen, but bad things do too. Better never means better for everyone. It always means worse for some. Why is optimism considered to be the key to success? On an attitude spectrum, optimism is on one extreme end of the scale. Having a limited perspective is dangerous because it leads to people completely ignoring the presence of unfavorable outcomes. It's like disregarding one side of an equation. Just because you don't know how to solve the problem doesn't mean that you can just make the side that's easier to deal with the answer. Optimism can often lead to failure as it causes poor decision-making. If people are hopeful that they will achieve ambitious goals, their expectations will most probably be unrealistic because they haven't taken possible outcomes into account. In order to succeed, the possibility of failure must be addressed so people can implement ways to avoid it in their life. If you have a positive perspective, your inability to recognize the negative will hinder you from taking the measures required to avoid it. This ultimately decreases the probability of your success. Logical decision-making is something that optimists lack, for turning a blind eye to what doesn't please you won't make it go away. If something is highly unlikely to occur, no amount of optimism will make it happen. Nothing will come of nothing. You must make the decision to take action yourself. Another problem with optimism is that it doesn't allow you to be proactive. Accepting the possibility of the worst doesn't necessarily make you Oscar the Grouch. It allows you to take action. For instance, say you studied excessively for a test because you recognize the need to do so. Even before going in, you think of how you could alleviate the impact of a potential bad grade, since this unit has been notorious in the past. Extra credit projects, your next assignment, just keeping possibilities in mind. Then you focus on doing the test. Now, sitting in your hard, cold plastic chair, you're seriously doubting your abilities. Instead of giving yourself an illusion of hope, you mentally keep the amount of doubtful questions in mind. After handing the test in, you calculate the lowest mark you could possibly get to still maintain your average. This approach allows you to calculate the possibility of your success. Determining the best, worst-case scenario lets you determine how good your situation can get without being unrealistic. I've always felt like keeping a realistic attitude saves me from becoming depressed and disappointed, because my perspective reduces the probability of undesired surprises. Failure is a possibility, and giving myself false hope simply doesn't work. It just leads to my disillusionment. To me, success is a logical process. Hoping for the best doesn't do anything. Actually taking action does. And in order to take action, you have to recognize the need to do so. Why are we taught as young children that an optimistic attitude is the key to success? For me, it's not. And that's okay. That doesn't mean that I'm some depressed, pessimistic teenager stuck in my own self-induced version of hell. I just prefer looking at the world through a rational and logical perspective. Optimism is what results in a poor decision-making process, lack of action, and ignorance of the possibility of failure. In my opinion, the best way to tackle life would be through realism, because it allows everyone to avoid harmful bias by taking both positive and negative outcomes into account. If we're living in a world where both happen, we must recognize both in order to succeed. Even Walt Disney once said, "I always like to look on the optimistic side of life, but I'm realistic enough to know that life is a complex matter."